All right, welcome to part 8. So this was sort of the surprise that we mentioned in part 7. This is one of those days when you reminisce on things like, oh, it must be great, living the dream, building hot rods, doing all this cool stuff. Well, there's some days that really suck. So we had this car ready to go, tune loaded on it, double checked, triple checked everything, fluids all filled up, everything good to go. Hit the key, the starter made a pretty horrendous sound, kind of a grinding sound. So got underneath the car and starter kind of wiggled around a little bit. So figured that was bad. So anyways, pulled the starter out, and as you can see, these bolts aren't straight. If you turn them, they wiggle around. So blew the starter off the thing. All right, had that happen before. We had an engine that hydrolocked because it had a Texas Speed cylinder head with a pinhole in the casting. They were brand new. Hydrolocked one of the cylinders, hit the key, blew the starter off, broke the block. Didn't break the block. It's good news. It's great news. In fact, it's best case, worst case scenario. So good news, it did leave enough thread in the block. There's probably at least half an inch of thread. We can use these longer bolts and we're gonna get good engagement. But we're gonna kind of show you what we saw, why it did it. So, we looked, it didn't hydrolock. I pulled the plugs out and there was nothing in the cylinders, pulled the valve covers off. There wasn't anything crazy with this. We've had this engine apart. We put a cam in it. It's a GM crate engine. And, putting the cam in it and doing all this stuff, I remember bolting the clutch up and, having to use a flywheel tool to hold the flywheel. So things spun freely until we basically put the transmission and stuff in it. So I was like, well, that's probably where I need to look. So had to pull the starter out anyways. It was out. So then we looked through the hole, and this just sucks because we've used this shit before, and it's well, let me just show you, and then I'll kind of explain a little bit more. So you can see through this hole here. Here's our flywheel. Here's our bell housing. And if you can look in here, it's hard to get with the camera, but the goddamn pressure plate, it's hard to see, is hitting the bell housing. And it literally probably did a tenth of a rotation, whatever, and it just, buried the clutch into the bell housing. So the engine didn't spin. Good news is these holes up here are not cracked and broken, and lucky that GM gives you, literally, these things are threaded all the way through, and this side's just as deep. And we probably only lost, less than half the threads in it. So, like I said, longer bolts will fix that. Good news is we got to pull the transmission out, and then we're going to play with it and clearance it and do whatever we need to do. Hopefully we don't have to change bell housings or anything. So, well, anyways, we'll show you what we get when we tear it apart. All right, so we pulled the transmission out, bell housing off, and just like where it was visible from beneath, you could see where the clutch had been literally just dug into it. Kind of fucked up deal, but anyways, let's see if we can see anything on the clutch. Where was it? It was somewhere right around in here, right?
It's up higher.
Oh. I don't know. Anyways, so we're gonna grind on it. Grind on it. Grind on it. Bolt it back up. Turn it over. See how that works out.
I'm wondering, maybe we should put some other bolts in it and torque it down.
All right, so this is possibly the conclusion of part 8, and it was a lot of fun, as you can see by the pictures and the stuff. So, I don't know how many hours it took us. 5 hours to pull this thing all back apart, put it back together.
4. We had lunch in there.
4 hours, whatever. So anyways, it's back to where we started, minus the clutch dug into the deal. So I don't know if it's a problem with the QuickTime aluminum bell housing or the ram clutch a little off of spec. One of the parts on the pressure plate had to grind it down a little bit, and when, as you can see, took some metal off of the bell housing. So anyways, fingers crossed. Gonna give this another shot.
Take 2.
5. All right, fingers crossed. We're gonna light this thing off. Contact. Like butter. Oil pressure's good. It's about 50, 55 pounds. And it's idling. Wow. So we're gonna tweak on it, tune on it some more, and we'll get another video of us driving it. So, well, it started off as a dark day. I think it looks pretty good. Nothing pouring out the bottom, squirting out the top. That's a win. Thanks for watching.